Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Music Passion on YouTube's premier channel about all things women's football. Match day number 17 is just concluded with two great matches that were on display today, with the Netherlands taking on South Africa and Sweden taking on the USA. And we'll get right into the things that we learned from these two matches, the Netherlands versus South Africa, with the Netherlands lining up in a 3-5-2 formation and South Africa lining up in a 4-2-3-1 formation. The game started off very brightly, especially with the South Africans. We had the first shot on target with Katlana making a very good attempt at goal, but unfortunately her effort was never going to be in any real danger of threatening the goalkeeper Van Domselaar. And we'd be in the 8th minute where the first goal of the game would open up as Jules Ward would rise highest from a loose ball and head in to give the Netherlands the early lead in this game. And in spite of her best attempts 3 minutes later and even two very good attempts that were stopped again by her enemy, the goalkeeper, towards the end of the first half, Katlana was not able to bring South Africa back on level terms as they went into the second half of the game 1-0 to the Netherlands here. And going into the second half, there'll be a lot less pragmatism from the Netherlands here, as in the 55th minute there will be another goal that they scored from Lieke Martens, but unfortunately be called offside. But that would not be too much of an issue as the Dutch continued prying away at South Africa, and in the 67th minute they would finally get their second goal as Bierenstein would make a shot from range, which the keeper Swart had managed to save but only momentarily before she spilled the ball out of her hands to make it 2-0 to the Dutch. And for the remainder of the game from here on out, the Dutch were pretty much defending their 2-goal lead. South Africa were coming in with a barrage of many promising attacks that they unfortunately were unable to convert, either due to very poor shots being taken or at the very worst Van Domselaar, who channeled her inner Gandalf by making sure that no goal would pass through her. And there would be another good chance here for South Africa literally in the dying seconds of the game as Katlana, the troublemaker here for Banyana and the Netherlands defense here, she had another shot on goal that was about to go in had it not been again for Van Domselaar here. And unfortunately the game would end up being 2-0 in favor of the Dutch here. And looking at the overall game here, South Africa made a very good account of themselves here, and I really do think that if it was just for a lot of better finishing and some other attempts that should have gone their way really, and if not for the heroics of Van Domselaar, they would have easily run out the victors here, especially since they pretty much had their backs against the wall as the underdogs going into this match, as even I didn't predict them to have a very good showing against the Dutch here. But based on what I saw today and what the rest of you would have likely seen if you watched the match, even just the highlights, you'll definitely see that South Africa were, in my opinion at least, the better team on the pitch here. So unfortunately for them, they do get knocked out, but they should hold their heads up high because they made a real good account of themselves here at the World Cup in general. And hopefully if they do come around in 2027, they can have a much better run in the tournament because they do have a very good squad here full of experienced players as well as some very young and up and coming players who will definitely be featuring at the next World Cup. So hopefully they can come back around. And for the winners of the match here, the Netherlands, they do face off against Spain in the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup here. And I do have a little bit of fear for them because the way that South Africa played today is really akin to the way Spain play as well. But Spain are obviously more well-rounded and more polished than South Africa are. And for the Netherlands here, I do fear that given the way they play today in a very pragmatic manner, I think it may come to haunt them. But at the same time, there shouldn't really be that much of a worry for them because we have seen throughout their group stage games so far that they're able to adapt to their opposition, as seen in their game against Portugal and the USA particularly. So hopefully they do have a game plan against Spain going in. Otherwise, Spain, given the current form that they're in and the way they play, they will have an easy matchup against the Netherlands. And just a quick word on the injuries to Siopo Senwe and Bane in the first half of the game. Hopefully both of the players have not sustained any long-term injuries. Obviously one of them was stretched off the match, but hopefully they are fine and there is no long-term injury that has been suffered by either one of them, and we wish the very best to both of them in their recoveries. And in the next match, we had Sweden taking on the USA with both teams out in a 4-2-3-1 formation, with the winner getting the distinct honor, or dishonor, however you want to phrase it or see it, to face Japan in the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup here. And pretty much throughout the game, it was just the USA show. USA had chance after chance to go in front, but unfortunately they were going to be kept out by Musovic, who, just like Van Domselaar, made her best attempts to make sure that nothing would go through. And at the end of the game, there was absolutely nothing that could separate the two sides. Even 30 minutes of extra time was not enough, as the dreaded penalty shootouts, the first of this edition of the Women's World Cup, ensued here. And this is where the most drama went down. And in the toss, it was Sweden who won it here and elected to go obviously to the side where their fans were and elected for the USA to shoot first, of which for the first two attempts by both teams, they all went in. And it was from the third attempt forward where the drama really started here. Whereas the USA scored on their third attempt, Sweden failed. And on the fourth attempt for Megan Rapinoe, who could have sealed it here for the USA, she unfortunately missed her shot alongside Blomqvist, who missed her fourth shot as well to keep the USA ahead. But then when it came up to young Sophia Smith to take her shot, she would miss, and this time Bennison would score the fifth attempt for Sweden to make sure that the next set of penalties would be sudden death, which means that the first team to score would be declared the winners here. And obviously the USA would go up next, and Neha would score, the goalkeeper of the USA. She would score to make it 4-3, and everything now relied on Eriksson. Eriksson would have to miss or have her shot saved in order to guarantee the USA would go through to the next round of the Women's World Cup. But luckily for the Swedes, Eriksson would score, and it came to the next round of sudden death here, where the dramatics really came out now, with O'Hara coming up for the USWNT here, unfortunately missed her shot, and it all came down to Lina Hurtig, the 27-year-old Arsenal player who, if she had made the shot, to guarantee her team safe passage into the quarterfinals of the Women's World Cup here. Now when she took her shot, the ball seemed to just hit the line here, as Neha had her hand on it and it didn't fully go in, and it was all down to a VAR call to make the decision as to whether it went in or it went out. And unfortunately for the USA, it was declared to have gone in, to have crossed the line by VAR, and that would mean that for the first time in pretty much forever, the USA have been knocked out of the Women's World Cup here, with Sweden advancing to the quarterfinals here. And this, historically enough, is the first elimination of the United States before the semi-finals, which just goes to show the dominance and the prestige of the USWNT. But massive congratulations to Sweden for achieving this huge monumental victory here, because pretty much they have done the unthinkable, and we are now guaranteed to have a new Women's World Cup champion for the first time in 2 editions. So congratulations to Sweden, commiserations to the United States, and this was just a fantastic game here. And just looking at the performances of both teams here, Sweden really did a good job of staying in the game, particularly through the heroics of Musovic, who was undeniably the player of the match here, with her very elegant and extravagant saves that kept the team in the game throughout here. They have a very good chance of advancing past Japan, but at the same time they need to be wary, because Japan, like I've said in so many different videos in the past, they're a well-oiled machine, and unlike the USA, Japan are more efficient in front of goal, and I do fancy the chances to beat Sweden. But regardless of whatever ends up being the result between those two teams, it is definitely going to be a fun match to watch. And as for the USA, it does mean that their hopes and their dreams of achieving a 3rd in a row and a 5th overall World Cup crown comes to an end here, and the team should not be disappointed for leaving this early. Obviously they will be, given that it's the USA, but given the current state of the squad that is going through a transitional period between the old guard and the new blood, with the likes of Rapinoe making way for the likes of Smith and Rodman, there was definitely going to be a few hiccups in this tournament here, but it's just something for them to build up from and learn from these issues that they face, especially against Sweden, so that at the next edition of the Women's World Cup they can go again and try their best to get their 5th World Cup crown, because overall in this match they had the better performance of the two teams, and it's just unfortunate that they just could not get past Musovic, and it's also unfortunate that the penalty decision for Hurtig's shot just did not go in their favor. But other than that, the USA should be proud of what they've done, and hopefully they can come back stronger. And those are the things that we learned from the 2 games on display today. Of course, the round of 16 continues tomorrow, with England taking on Nigeria and Australia taking on Denmark. 2 very mouth-watering encounters in my opinion, particularly England versus Nigeria. I think that one's going to have the most fireworks, but given what we've seen so far of the 4 matches of the round of 16, Australia and Denmark could bring the fireworks just as much, if not even more. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.